evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's webinar on the top 10 challenges of leaders today, presented by SCORE Broward. We want to thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. LaTanya Hughes, and I will serve as the moderator this evening. This webinar is in listen-only mode. However, we have enabled the question and answer feature for you. The recording and the PDF presentation will be sent to you in the next 24 hours. So again, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar on the top 10 challenges of leaders today. Next slide. We do have this webinar is being sponsored by the City of Miramar. Next slide. This is our agenda for this evening. I will be reviewing some information about SCORE and do a great introduction. You have a phenomenal speaker that's going to be sharing some tons of information. And again, please don't worry if you miss something, you don't get to take a note or anything, because we will be sending you a copy of the presentation within 24 hours. But I do recommend you take a few notes. But if you miss something, don't worry, you'll be able to watch it again and take some notes offline. Next slide. Our presenter tonight is Coach Michael Krumpak. He is a SCORE volunteer. Our speaker, who is not able to make it this evening, is Claude Lucent. He is the Business Development Coordinator of the City of Miramar. And again, I am Dr. LaTanya Hughes, your moderator for the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you we have a phenomenal presenter tonight. And I am so excited to present Coach Michael E. Krumpak. He is the founder and president of L4 Learning Solutions, LLC. It is a unique boutique leadership cultivation firm serving the world and located here in South Florida. He has over 3 decades, ladies and gentlemen, of experience providing strategic human capital learning and leadership development and cultivation solutions internationally. He is a masterful ICF professionally trained executive coach, facilitator, and instructional designer of virtual and face-to-face learning experiences with proven results. Michael completed the executive coach certification program at the University of Miami, accredited by the International Coaching Federation, ICF. He also holds a bachelor's degree in business and organizational communication from the University of Akron and a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from the University of Baltimore. Michael has worked with the U.S. House of Representatives, Samsung, Chewy, American Airlines, Carfax, AOL, Time Warner, DIA, and so many more. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the best of the best, the cream of the crop. Without further ado, please welcome Coach Michael Krumpak.
Thank you, LaTanya. I swear that's like the warmest welcome I've received in the last 2 years of this pandemic. So thank you everyone for attending tonight's webinar on the top 10 leadership challenges revealed, and most importantly, what you can do about it. I'd love to kind of get a sense. Thank you everyone from UVI for starting us off in our chat conversations tonight. But I'd love to get a sense of where you currently located right now. And if you could tell me a little bit about your role. Are you a business owner? Are you a manager? Are you, however you want to describe yourself. So in the chat pod, just so we can see where everyone is and who everyone is, if you could just quickly say the city, state that you're connecting from, as well as what is your role or what is your job. And I got all night, so we can wait. No, maybe some of you have some really long jobs. All right.
They're from the University of Virgin Islands. We're partnership with the University of Virgin Islands.
That's great. That's great. Is there anyone else who's not part of the University of Virgin Islands? Okay. Oh, here are a couple. The world's first A Corp. Okay, Fort Lauderdale, business owner. Thank you so much, Hugh. Someone from Tampa, another person from Tampa. Thank you. Superintendent of Logistics Branch. Great. Real estate business owner, Naples, Florida. LA, okay. So I don't know what's further away, Virgin Islands or LA. I would say LA from South Florida. Shirley's a business owner, Pembroke Pines, St. Croix, Virgin Islands. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the fact that we have more of an international audience tonight. And this is kind of an opportunity for you to share some of your stories, some of your lessons learned, answer some of the questions that we have in the chat pod. I really enjoy having a lot of diversity, and it seems like tonight's audience is fairly diverse. So thank you everyone for attending. Just a little bit about me. Like LaTanya said, my name is Michael Krumpak. I go by Coach Krumpak. And I've been in learning and development for about 30 years. I started when I was 18 in a call center doing sales and really enjoyed it. And all of a sudden the VP said, "Hey, Michael, can you go take these people and train them everything that you want to do?" And I'm like, "I've never trained anyone in my life, but let me give it a try." And I tried it, I enjoyed it. And I've really had a great career focusing in learning and development and leadership development. And I opened my own business about 3 years ago. So thank you to SCORE for a lot of the resources to kind of help me get up and running with my business. And as I was starting my business, I had a lot of questions. We were kind of new into the pandemic. Leadership seemed like it was changing. So one of the things that I did was I started this project where I contacted 100 people and I asked them one question. I said, "What do you think is the biggest challenge today of leaders?" And my audience included C-suite executives, it included business owners, it included individual contributors. And I took all this information and summarized it into what I'll share with you are the top 10 leadership challenges today. And just to give you some highlights of some of the research, a lot of the problems and challenges were around people did not know how to grow their business. With business development, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities for us to be managers, but really from what I've seen and what my clients share, it's harder to think about what really good leadership looks like. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about management and leadership and what the differences are and how you can use both of those sides of business to grow and develop and cultivate your business. Some of the other challenges were businesses were not meeting goals. We had a lack of ready now successors. So if heaven forbid, someone left an organization tomorrow, there was a big gap between people who were not ready to move into that position. And I know as small business owners, I'm a one-man show myself. It's hard to think of like who's going to do the job if you step out or step on to something else. So a lot of the challenges were around working with people and giving them some of the skills so that they can lean in and help you be successful, your business be successful. Like I said before, managers are not leading. The way I like to think about the difference between management and leadership is you manage things and you lead people. So you manage time cards, you manage budgets, you manage marketing strategy. And you lead people, you motivate them, you demonstrate empathy, you look at helping them understand their purpose, their mission, how it aligns with you and your organization. So there's a big difference between management and leading. And tonight's webinar really focuses on that second side of the house, which is leadership development. Employees were unengaged and underperforming, and a lot of business leaders were lacking executive presence. For those people that pre-pandemic were doing a lot of presentations, you could kind of fumble through it. But now that we're all boxes on a screen, on a Zoom camera, it's a little bit more challenging to really get engagement and to present virtually. So these are some of the big challenges. And like LaTanya said, going back to kind of my experiences, I've had some privileged experiences with government, with airlines and transportation, with government defense in DC. So I've really been able to work and to see what a lot of problems are across industries in the past, as well as some of the trends and some of the demands for today. So speaking of today, the roadmap for today is I'm not going to tease you and wait to the end or give you challenge by challenge. I'm going to start off by giving you all 10 of those leadership challenges. And then I'm going to ask you in just a couple moments to share with me what you feel are the most important and the most critical business challenges for you. And based on what you say, based on some questions that I'll ask you and encourage you to share with everyone in the chat pod, we'll try to identify if there's some common trends and common needs so that we can really customize the rest of this webinar to meet everybody's individual needs. At the end, we will give you a job aid, which is a summary of everything that I've talked about. It looks like this. There's 2 pages. So it talks about what are some of the challenges and what are some considerations in terms of things that you can do to demonstrate really good leadership around these 10 big challenges. I encourage you, if you have questions, you can type it in the chat pod. You can also type it in the question and answer pod, and LaTanya will help me manage those as well. So we've already asked where you've been locating. I'm going to just kind of ask for a little bit of ground rules, and I will tell you, we will give an award to the most engaged participant today. And LaTanya and I are going to work together. She has some special access to secret things on her side, but we're going to look at people who have asked a lot of questions, who have contributed. And at the end, we will pick one of those highly participative participants and give them a complimentary coaching package. So you will get 1 month of executive coaching with me. It's normally about a $900 plus value. And that will give you an opportunity to finalize some of your goals and hopefully begin to put some action plans in place to help you become your better best and help you grow your business or your learning. So to do that, I ask that you be present. I know you get to see me all night. I don't get to see you. So it's a little bit unfair, but it's okay. So I'll just ask you, since I can't see you and hear you, please use those tools that we have in terms of the chat pod and the question and answers, and post anything that you have. If there's something that you'd like to talk a little bit more about, if you have some specific questions, or if everyone's like, you know what, we're great at this, let's move on. The chat pod is the way that you can kind of help us all customize the experience and the journey that we will all take together tonight. And then finally, it's an opportunity for you to network and collaborate as you see some of your fellow peers from today. So like I said, the format, we have 3 things. We have chat pods, we have polls, and we have questions. All right, so on with the show here. Like I said, I asked 100 people, and most of them were over the phone. So it was about 15-minute conversation. I do have to confess, not everybody was able to speak with me. So I did do a couple emails, a couple text messages, but basically reached out to 100 people to find out what the top challenges are for today. And that's what we're really doing today is showcasing what those challenges are, so that you can get a couple ideas and a couple tips and tricks that you can apply to your job and to your business. Like I said, there's a difference between management and leadership. Management, as I said, is managing things. And according to Peter Drucker, great author and educator, management is doing things right, but leadership is doing the right things. So if you think about it, we've looked at what are the biggest challenges that employees have today in terms of leadership. We've packaged that into these 10 core leadership activities that if you do them correctly, you will definitely move the needle and hopefully be known as someone who does things a lot more regularly, frequently, and correct. So going back to the 100-person project, the focus was on leadership. And when I think about leadership myself and my practice, I look at it under 3 pillars. It's leading yourself. So whether you're a people manager or you're an individual contributor or you're just a one-person entrepreneur, then you're leading yourself. And then the second prong is leading others, which would be your employees, your staff, your associates, and then finally leading your company, or as I say, leading your organization. So the objective of this project was to determine what those pain points are, provide guidance to close those gaps, and develop strategies to help you and others thrive. And like I said, it was a big project. It lasted about 3 months. It started in the summer of last year and wrapped up, I think it was the end of Q3, beginning of Q4 last year. So if you are ready, we will give you the top 10 challenges here. All right, so here's what they are. I'm going to take a drink of water and let you kind of look at them for a second. So these are actually in the order of number 10 to number 1. So create an engaged culture, demonstrate polarity management, which I'll talk about that in a little bit, but polarity management is basically, it's not about getting to the right answer. It's about managing 2 different things. For example, I need to make sure that my employees are safe, and I need to make sure that production is 10% greater than it was last year. So it's managing 2 extremes, not really trying to solve a problem, but really trying to manage 2 things that can be at the opposite of each other. Leading change and cultural transformation, leading remote, dispersed, and hybrid teams. So I have a question for everyone on tonight's webinar. If you could just answer a quick question for me in the chat pod. Do you manage virtual people? Meaning, do you have people that are in another office, in another country, in another location? Or do you pretty much deal with everybody that's kind of face-to-face in the same thing? I'm seeing lots of no's, lots of no's. Okay, so if I understand this correct, pretty much 100% of you, okay, Hugh, thank you. So 99% of you are managing people face-to-face, but it sounds like there's a little bit of an opportunity to manage people virtually. So that's really good. I'm going to kind of use that to kind of customize and talk a little bit more about face-to-face. And certainly if you have some questions about virtual leadership, let me know. And I'm always happy to I do offer a free discovery call. So if anyone has some questions and you want to talk sometime in the future, I'm happy to schedule that with you, and I'll share my contact information with you at the end. So communicate and navigate, present virtually, sounds like that's not a big thing. Removing bias in performance management was a big thing. And that's really making sure that you set goals correctly and then provide coaching and feedback and guidance to people without bias. Number 3 was managing projects, time, and resources, a big one. Strategically aligning talent, which is trying to get the right people in the right job. There's a strategic element to this. What do you need people to be doing to make your businesses thrive even better in the future? And how can you start thinking about how are you going to either cultivate, develop, buy, hire, to get the people so that you're able to get the right people in the right job in the future. And then that kind of goes with number 1, which is finding and selecting the right talent. So Latanya, I'm going to ask you to please bring up our first poll. We'll give you about 30 seconds to complete this. But what describes your needs today? Are you here because you want to learn ways that you can help your business? Are you focused more on helping your team or your employees or your associates? Are you here because you want to help yourself, or is there something else? So we'll give you about 10 more seconds. Looks like about 30% of you have answered the poll, 40, 50. All right, there we go.
Yeah, remember, most of our folks are in the Virgin Islands, so there may be a delay with internet.
Yeah, no worries. We'll give it a second. This is really
For
interesting.
those of you that are responding in the chat, please click on the poll
Oh yeah, thank you,
so
Latonya.
that we can actually get the data in the actual poll. But thank you for participating in the chat, but click on the poll answer.
So we're waiting for 13 more people. We're going to give you 5 more seconds. Looks like some people aren't seeing the poll. You may want to kind of click around and see if it'll pop up. If you can't see the poll, go ahead and just put your answer in the chat pod, and we'll just kind of use that to do some of our calculations. All right, there's a couple more people. Okay, so the poll has ended, and this is really interesting. So this is actually the 3rd time I've done this webinar. The 2nd time was with SCORE in December, and it's very interesting that the results are consistent each time we do this. So it looks like most people are here to help your business, over half, 52%. The other group that we had said 43%. So a little bit more focused on the business needs today than in the past, but definitely the number one need. And then you want to help your team, 10% today for today's webinar group. And last time it was at 13%. And then you want to help yourself, 31. Last time it was 35. So let me just write this down so I can refer back to it later. 31 and something else. So I do have a quick question. For those of you who said something else, would you be so kind to share that in the chat pod? So if you're not here to help your business, your team, or yourself, is there something else that you would like us to just know? I know it's about 7% of you that said something else. I'm just a little curious to see what that is. Okay, well, I'm by myself waiting to start and grow. But oh, okay, that's great. So you are, it sounds like Lourdes is thinking about starting a business or growing a business. So that's great. There's a lot of things that are required to build a business. And you know, it's great that you're interested in the leadership piece as well, because as you grow your business, as you have opportunities to demonstrate really good business, really good leadership. That's going to help us grow that. So Latanya, have we shared the results? Can everyone see that?
Yes, I did share the results.
Okay. All right. I see a button that says share results on my end, so I just want to make sure. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and take down that poll if we could. And all right. So today's focus is really around the first 2 areas here. We're going to talk about the challenges. We're going to talk about the solutions. And we are, I'm trying to get this, hold on one second. Get rid of the poll here. We're going to focus on the challenge and solution. We're going to give you some ideas, but the takeaway for everyone today, should you agree to it, is to try to put together a plan. So I always encourage people to write down some steps, some action plans, some things that you will commit to doing. So once we talk about the challenge and the solutions of the things that pertain to you, what are some of the commitments that you can make personally? What is it that you'd like to claim from today's webinar to help you become a more successful business owner or leader in general? So we'll focus on the challenge and the solution and ask you to focus on the plan. So let's go through the top challenge. Challenge number 10 is finding and selecting the right talent. And I have a perspective and I have a philosophy that I wanted to share with you. And this is what I'm noticing. This is from observations from my coaching clients, from my consulting. I find that when you think about talent, it's not so much finding people that can tell you about a time when they've managed conflict. Certainly that's important, but it's really trying to find people who are resilient, who are flexible, and have a great attitude. They can pivot on a dime, and they're able to unlearn things that have not worked in the past, and they're able to pick up or grab these new skills to relearn what's needed for tomorrow's competitive landscape. So it's all about assessing learning agility. So as you look to grow your business, as you look to develop partnerships, as you look to hire employees, trying to find people that really have this demonstrated need and ability to unlearn what doesn't work and to learn some new skills. Let me tell you, the big thing that I'm seeing these days as an emerging critical talent is artificial intelligence. Like if you think about customer service, whether it's with your cell phone or retailer, we're pushed into this chat and we're talking with computers and they're picking out keywords. And from that, they're routing us to tools and resources and people. That's something that we didn't really have 5-10 years ago. That's a new skill. So if your organization provides customer service or another opportunity for learning agility, this is just something to think about. So it's about selecting the right talent and really thinking about not only what you need today, but what do you need tomorrow? And how do you make sure that you can find and select the right talent that can really pivot and move on a dime and help you to be successful? So with that challenge, think about how you select employees. Do you have a structured interview? Do you have competencies? It's important not only to look at people, can they do the job, but you also have to assess and interview for organizational fit, culture fit, and team fit. So it's a lot more dynamic. It's a lot more complex than it used to be. And really, like I said, the big thing is trying to find people who can pivot, who can learn, who are resilient, who are adaptive, and they're able to deal with change and able to learn new skills to be successful for them personally, as well as for your business in the future. One of the best phrases I've always said, and I've heard this from a lot of people, is you want to hire the athlete and teach them the game. So hire people that have the great attitude, have the great experience and training, and you can teach them your processes, your procedures, your guidelines. You can show them the elements of the job. You really want to find someone that has a really good heart. They really have a good attitude and can kind of grow with you in your organization. And a great way to help you develop your talent or to prepare people for the next job at the right time and the right place are things like apprenticeships or rotational programs or mentoring programs. SCORE has an amazing mentoring program that really puts new business owners in contact with more senior business owners and experienced business owners. And again, it's just a great way to help develop talent. So let me just pause for a second. I think I saw someone raise their hand and I wanted to check with LaTanya just to see if there were any questions or anything that we wanted to kind of address. So we'll just pause for a second and check in.
I'm taking a look, I'm scrolling. I don't see a raised hand, but there's a lot of people, so give me a moment.
Okay.
Just going back through.
And if anyone has a question, you can type it in the chat pod as well so that we can make sure that we check in with you.
Okay, so someone, M. Josh, wants to know what questions would you ask to see if they have these skills in the interview?
Ah, that's really good. So what particular skills, Josh, is there one thing in particular that you're looking for? I guess I'm asking, what is the skill that you need to assess? And if you could type that response, that would be good. As Josh is typing that in, I'll just give you, oh, okay, here we go. I see it here. How is this new process changed? It's a little cut off on mine. Let me move this over.
It says, how has this new approach changed the interview and assessment process?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it, well, let me say that, yes, I think it's changed, but another way I like to say it's more evolved. So for example, you're looking at experiences and qualifications that they have, making sure that they have Excel skills, that they have a project management certification, whatever it would be. And to assess that, it's tell me about a time that you've worked with a very complex project and how did it turn out? One of the things that I always tell business owners to use is, it's called the STAR model, STAR. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but I'll tell you real quickly what it is. It's asking people to tell them or tell you about behavioral instances where they've done something. So tell me about a time that you've managed a very complex budget, and how did you do it and what did it turn out? So the S in STAR stands for what's the situation, the task and the actions are the T and the A, and then the R stands for the results. So it's asking those behavioral questions, but then it's also asking those questions like, tell me about a time when you worked on a project and you realized that something had changed and you shouldn't be working on that project anymore. So it depends on the level of the position, but if you're interviewing for someone to help manage your business, you want to know not only can they perform the job, but are they able to recognize when they need to stop doing things, when they need to sunset some projects so that they can open up their bandwidth and experience so they can take on more things. So when I think of learning agility, I think of, and I have this in the bullet point. So I worked in the Defense Department and I noticed that a lot of the people that we were looking to recruit, we found that there was a high probability of success if they came from the pharmacy industry. And the reason why is both defense and pharmacy are heavily regulated, lots of procedures, lots of laws, lots of guidelines, ethical standards, all of that. So finding people who may work in a maybe unrelated industry or unrelated business and trying to like tap into those people and ask them questions. So let me go back to the chat pod. Well, you mentioned that you need someone who can change and be able to fit in and do things different. Okay, I answered your question. Okay, yeah. So it's not about, in the past, it's like, oh, we need to do change management. Everybody needs to change. And John Kotter is, I think, the father of change. He has great methodologies, great systems. I've taught change management in grad school, and that's super important. But also, you want to interview first for resiliency. Like, find people that are able to stop things that no longer make sense. Find people that are not resistant. And the way I look at this is there's two different types of mindsets, and this will be my last point, then we'll move on. There's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is, I know everything that I need to do. I don't need to learn anything else. No one's going to tell me what to do. I'm good at my job and leave me alone. A growth mindset is someone who's always inquisitive. They're always trying to raise the bar. They're doing their work and then they're asking, what are some other opportunities where I can help you? They're able to stop. They can get the job done without being super emotional if at times things need to change and pivot. So the whole point of this challenge 10 is finding and selecting the right talent. It's making sure that you're asking them the right questions, but you're going deeper to assess. So my background is in industrial organizational psychology. So if I'm working with more of an executive level or a senior team, We have a series of assessments. We can do 360 feedback. We can do a lot of other things to try to get a sense of where people are and where they want to go so that you can align the talent within the areas of the organization that are most important. So, all
We
right.
have one more question in the chat. Christy wants to know, what about asking them for a challenge they experienced, what it was, how they handled it, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's good to ask people, what's a challenge that you experienced and tell me about it. You want to be careful though. I always find it better to make it job related. So tell me about a challenge that you experienced in your job at wherever it was. But I think that's it. You're asking people to think back and tell you a story about how they've dealt with something, how they've demonstrated competencies like problem solving, communication, conflict management, whatever it would be, and tell you a story about how they've done it. The whole thing about interviewing and especially behavioral interviewing, the philosophy on this is past behavior predicts future behavior. So you don't want someone to say, oh, I think I would do this, or I will do this, or I coulda, shoulda. No, it's like you want to try to ask questions about, tell me specifically a challenge that you've done, that you've experienced, where you had to fill in the blank based on what your business is. And then after they start talking, typically you're asking 5 to 7 follow-up questions to get them to give you all the specific details that you need for that. So hopefully that was helpful for you. So let's do another poll real quick. I just want to know, how big is your business? And I think some of you have answered this already, but is it just you? Do you have 2 to 10, 11 to 25, 26 to 100? Maybe you don't have a business and you're thinking of one. You can put that in the chat if you'd like, but just kind of curious, how large is your organization right now? Okay, we're going to give you 5 more seconds. We have 55% of you who completed it. Let's get it to 70 at least.
We have a couple people in the chat that say they don't have a business yet.
Okay. Excellent. And I encourage you, for those of you who are thinking of starting your own business, it's always great to find people who do what you want to do and try to meet with them. One of the things that I try to tell my clients when they're trying to like get a job or learn about a different industry is ask someone if they'll have an informational conversation with you or an informational interview. And it usually goes like, hey, Paul, I see that you work at XYZ Enterprises. I'm not looking for a job, but I really admire some of the work and how you've grown your business. Would you be willing to have coffee with me? Or would you be willing to have a 15-minute conversation? So it's asking those questions to help you really identify what's most important to you and how can you get the information that you need to decide if you want a business. All right, so thank you for doing the poll. It looks like most of you have about 2 to 10, which is a really good number. Some of you a little bit larger, one person, it looks like, oh, that's, most of you are single business owners, 48%. And then second place goes to the 2 to 10 employees. So great, thank you for your engagement. And thanks for answering our polls in the chat pods. I really appreciate that. So let's talk about strategically aligning talent. And this is a really good quote. You could only achieve the right people for the right job if you have business goals that are well-defined and competencies, which are the knowledge, skills, ability, attitude, I like to call it capabilities, those things that are aligned to, if people do project management, great communication, problem solving, whatever those competencies are, then that will help you achieve your goals. So it's all about thinking about what's the mission, what's your why, what's your vision for your company or your organization? How do you back into the goals that are important for you? And it could be goals for this year, it could be the next 3 to 5 years. It all depends on that. But the first thing to strategically align talent is to be 100% crystal clear about what are your goals and what are the measures of success. And it's only then that you can back into, okay, if this is what I stand for, this is my goals, these are my mission, vision, and values, then let's go ahead and back into what we need people to do to get us to achieve that. So challenge number 9, strategically aligning talent. So it's knowing your talent up, down, and sideways. So there's a couple different ways to assess talent. You can do talent assessments, you can do rank ordering, you can do 9 boxes, which is a method where you look at performance on one axis, potential on the other axis, and you map people to determine who are your rock stars, who's the top talent, who are the high potential people that can help you take your business further than you are today, that you want to kind of keep an eye on them. So it's basically trying to understand your talent. And then kind of the next in line, once you understand your talent, it's asking them questions like, what do you want to do with your career? What do you want to do with your job? Do you want to stay in this job forever? Do you want to get a promotion? What do you want to do? I want to add more value to your organization. Okay, great. Let's have a conversation about it. So in order to do that, you have to have the goals in place. You have to be able to assess your talent. And let me ask you a quick question here in the chat pod. Who do you think is the worst person to assess your performance as an individual? Who do you think is the worst person to assess your performance or your potential as an individual? Any guesses in the chat pod? Yes, it's you. It's you. Because we think we're doing good, we intend to do well, and then other people see us a little bit differently. So some of you said it yourself. Yeah. So yeah, the worst person to assess ourselves is us. So that's why it's important to have goals, to have performance management, to do these talent assessments, to do these 9 boxes, to do business simulations and all these other things so that you know who your best of the best talent are. So when I worked in defense, we did this thing called an in-basket test. And it was a 2-day experience, and it was for directors that we were trying to promote to VPs. And we actually hired actors to come in and engage in business scenarios so that we could see how these directors actually communicated, created emails, established goals, took a lot of data, synthesized it, made decisions. So it was this experience where you gave people a simulation to kind of test them out. The important thing is you have to make sure that it's a valid assessment and it's based on the job requirements. So it's important that you consult with others to do that. But there's a lot of different ways that you can get to know and assess and understand your talent. And going back to the second to the last bullet, your role as a leader should be to grow your talent to move on to bigger things. And typically people in larger organizations, from time to time, we see the manager that's like, oh, my employee is so great, I want to keep them forever and I never want them to leave. And it's like, no, like one of your metrics for success is how many of your direct reports or your individual employees get promoted or move to another department, and then you can recognize and celebrate that. So it's important to strategically align your talent, to make sure you have goals, and try to think of a timeline of like between 1 to 3 years, and that may change based on where you are. All right, so it is 6:49 Eastern time. So we have about 40 minutes and we are on challenge number 8. So with your permission, I'm going to speed up a little bit, but again, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat pod. And if we find that we need to carve out some time at the end for your questions, we'll certainly do that. So number 8, I don't think it's a big surprise. It's people have to work smarter, faster, more safely, more efficiently than they did before. So it's really important to have very clear, crystal clear, uncompromisingly clear expectations that you as a business owner and the people that work for you clearly understand what your goals are, what success looks like, so you can manage your project, you can manage your time, and you can manage your resources. So there is a lot of really cool tools out there. For those of you who are not rock star managers, there's artificial intelligence where you get asked a series of questions of what are your projects and when are they due, and the computer basically tells you what to do and changes your calendar from hour by hour based on the other people that work with you so that you can be more efficient, effective, and productive. So there's training, there's tools, there's guidelines, but the big thing that leaders today need to do is it's not only working hard, it's working smart. And it's working by aligning your time, your talent on the right things and the right systems. So project management is uber important, and it's something that is very important. So number 8 here, remove bias in performance management. I'm not sure how much of this applies to everyone, but let me just say this. Performance management is setting goals and giving your employees feedback. Do you have a formal system? Do you have an informal system? There's a lot of new research about bias. And here's something that I find very interesting. So let's talk about gender bias. So males tend to get a lot of feedback on their work and their contributions. Females tend to get mostly feedback on their interpersonal skills and their personality. So that's proven research. So by knowing that, if I'm a manager of males and females, I can make sure that I provide feedback not only about the what people are doing, but also the how, and balance tasks with personality and really give feedback to the whole person. So to remove bias, it's putting together goals, it's providing feedback more regularly, more frequently, and it's examining your biases if you have it. And like I said, if you have more questions, please reach out to me at the end or after, and we can talk a little bit more about that. So this, I recall, this was not a big thing. So let me just kind of zip through this. 92% of communication is non-verbal. What? So the words that you use are 8% of communication. Most of it is your tone, your pitch, your volume, what you look like on camera, what you look like face to face. So the moral of the story is make sure that when you have to lean into more of a virtual environment, you realize that there's a lot of things that come into play. And I recently did a poll on LinkedIn about what are the top challenges in virtual meetings. And I have the results, but I don't know where they are. But basically, the number one pain point is distracted participants. And if I had a camera on you right now, like what would I see you doing? So some of you are probably incredibly engaged, and I thank you very much for that. But if you're like me, sometimes you get busy. You need to, warm up a hot pocket or something like that. So you're not always 100% engaged. And there's things that you can do when you're leading these virtual meetings to really communicate your expectations and make sure that people are engaged and productive. And so many times it doesn't even have to be a meeting. It can be an email or a report. So challenge number 6 is really communicating effectively, particularly if it's changed because of the new pandemic. All right, let me pause and see if there's any questions. I see a couple things in the chat pod here. Every employer has the right to be prejudicial versus street racism, stereotype. Martin, I don't know if I understand what you're saying, but every employee has the right to be, okay. So challenge number 5 is providing honest feedback. And it's so interesting that as humans, some of us have a hard time being direct and being honest. So this includes having a goal, having a desire to achieve the goal, and to share what's going well and what's not going well. And that's according to some Harvard business review. Being honest and having good communication has to be it has to be something that's valued and practiced. So have agreed upon performance targets and regular check-ins. If this is important to you and your business, ask for feedback, provide feedback, and over time, you actually create more of a culture of feedback and openness and sharing. And I tell you, I've seen a million times where the employee shares bad feedback or they share a concern, and all of a sudden they get treated differently or they get exited the organization. And, you know, my philosophy is let's create an open culture since everyone has to work so hard. And let's provide feedback, both from you, the leader, to your employees, but then ask your employees as well for feedback. And that's going to develop a great coaching mindset and coaching culture. So I have this model that I really think it's really helpful. So when you're gathering feedback, and again, we're the worst people to give feedback, or the worst people to assess our own performance. When you're gathering feedback, if one person gives you negative feedback, I like to say that it's a hunch. If 2 people come to you as a leader and they say, hey, I'm having a problem with Jorge, your project manager, and those 2 people are sharing the same type of feedback, I call that a trend. And if 3 people or more say, hey, I have the same problem, that's solid evidence. And what I've seen is some novice leaders, someone runs to the leader and says, hey, I have a problem. And they're like, oh, great, I love problem solving. Let me run and take care of it. Well, you really want to kind of step back, gather information, make sure it's really a problem before you tackle it. So the whole point of this is if you're going to provide honest feedback, cool your emotions, gather information, gather data, watch and observe, and then provide honest feedback. And the best way to do that is to get out of your office and lead by walking around. Finally, if people are doing things great, you want to give them great feedback because what gets noticed gets repeated. And also, if people are not doing what you expect them to do, it's important to be honest with them and share that type of feedback as well. Criticism is gold. It tells us where we are, where we need to improve. Yeah, be aware of the egotism and the enemy within. And if I'm tracking with you, I think what you're talking about is you want to make sure that you give feedback, but you don't want to do it from a place of, hey, I'm powerful because I am the almighty business owner and you need to listen to me. But take your title off and just be honest and candid with people. So providing honest feedback is super important. So it sounds like this isn't a big opportunity on leading dispersed teams. So I'll go through this a little fast, but basically for those of you who may not have all your employees face-to-face, you have to engineer what would normally happen organically. And you have to do it in a way that comes across as authentic and open. For example, you don't have a coffee pot, you don't have a water cooler. So maybe I'm going to pick up the phone and give someone a call. Maybe I'm going to invite someone to a virtual coffee. Or I worked in Washington, D.C., and my manager was in London at the time. And he would just send me a quick email a couple times a day. Hey, just want to check in. How are things going? And I'm like, wow, like, you know, he cares. He's paying attention. So it's taking those things that naturally and organically happen face to face and trying to make sure that they happen if you're managing people remotely. So we'll move on from that. All right, challenge number 3 here, lead change and cultural transformation. So this is a pretty big one. And I want to share a story that I think was pretty interesting. So I had the opportunity to work with the House of Representatives. I was the director of learning a long time ago. And we were in the process of doing a cultural change. And the big component of the change was trying to get people to own not only their problems, but the problems of others. And we had these buttons that we created, and it said, IIMJ, ask me. And everyone wore them around the house community. And of course, people were like, IIMJ, what is that? It stood, does anyone know what IIMJ stands for in the chat pod? Any guesses? Maybe some creative guesses would be kind of entertaining, maybe. IIMJ. It stands for, it is my job. So again, it's trying to get people to take ownership. For example, this is simple, but if you're walking down the hallway and you see a gum wrapper, you know, you pick it up because you want the workplace to be safe and clean and comforting. So it's, you know, little things like that. So back to the IIMJ button, we had this guiding coalition where we identified those people that had the personality, the reputation. They were just really solid workers. We gave them a button first so that they could start getting the buzz points and getting the attention. And then eventually when we brought everyone together and talked about, you know, our new change goals and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to serve the members of Congress better, we gave everyone a button. So kind of the point of this is we need to have agents of change, and we need to encourage leaders to model the new way. So for example, if you're trying to create a culture where people come to you and share problems, maybe when they're smaller before they become bigger, then you need to role model that as well, and, you know, ask for feedback and celebrate when people bring problems to you. There is a company, it's called Juniper Networks, and I don't know if they do this still, but in the past, they had a contest every month for the biggest mistake of the month. And they literally would like recognize mistakes that people made because they wanted people not to make the same mistakes, but to learn from them. So they actually like gave an award to the person who, I think they plugged in like the phone instead of the internet cable. And basically they brought down the network. It cost thousands of dollars. They lost like a half a day of productivity. You know, it was a mess, but they celebrated that because they had this value of making mistakes is important if you learn from it and you share that. So as business leaders, we make mistakes all the time. Do you have a culture where people kind of just, you know, sweep it under the rug? Or do people like share that? And the more that we can learn, we talked about learning agility before, and finding talent that can learn and be resilient and be adaptable, the more people can learn from the mistakes and share, wow, what a powerful organization that you can build. So it's challenging processes. It's saying no to things that no longer make sense and carving out time and space to say yes. And if you think of John Cotter, it's all about, you want to take your organization and unfreeze it. If you took everything that you did every single day and you just melted it down, and then you determine what are those pieces and parts that make sense, how do you want to put together the ultimate organization? You have your goals, your structure, your talent, your recruiting, your feedback, your performance management, whatever it would be. Line that all on the table, then you refreeze it, and then you come back and you evaluate it to make sure that it's working. And that's what really changes the culture. And you can do engagement surveys, you can do exit interviews. There's so many ways that you can measure what your culture is all about. but it's really important that you let people know what's the direction that we're trying to go to. How do we change? What's the cultural transformation? And how do we move forward? I had an opportunity to work at US Airways. This is like in the 90s, a long time ago. I know I look really young, but I'm really old. But we were doing a massive cultural transformation at US Airways, and eventually they folded into what is now American Airlines today. But we had this 5-point business plan, and it was on posters. We had programs, we had training, we had awards. And basically, at the heart of this 5-point business plan, we were trying to become the carrier of choice. And then spinning off that, it was we needed to rationalize the fleet network. At the time, they had Airbus, they had Boeing, they had McDonnell Douglas, they had like all these different like airplanes. And at that point, they were trying to go to more of an Airbus culture. They had like all these things, and it was just crystal clear. Everyone knew it. If we do these 5 things, and I'll spare you the details, we'll become the carrier of choice. So it's trying to figure out what's the change, why is it important, what are the goals around it, and then how do you empower others to get there? And I see the IIMJ, yes, it is my job. So silly little button, maybe you can think of something a little different or a little bit more original. I'd love to, hear what you do. But yeah, I mean, it's really identifying the vision and getting people motivated and rallied to get there. And it's making sure people are working hard, working smart, recognized, and that's really what good leadership is, giving good coaching and feedback. So let me pause for a second. It looks like we're doing pretty good on time. Are there any questions or anything you'd like me to go back to at this point in the game?
I don't see any questions in the comments that you haven't already addressed, though.
Great, thank you. Okay, I see some comments. Superior persons, humble, good-natured, able to improve themselves. Thank you. This is a great, great, great summary. Honor, fights the good fight. Yeah. And again, I mean, it's not rocket surgery, as I kind of joke with that term. It just takes time. You just have to like pause for a second, think about what's that organization that you want to be known for, what's your brand, and how do you make that come to life by looking at the people, the talent, the leadership, the service that you provide, the products that you provide, the solutions that you provide, and making sure that you motivate and inspire people. I mean, we spend a lot of time at work, and now for a lot of people, work and home is even more blended than it is before. So it's really important that people feel like they're contributing and their job is very meaningful. Like if you look at some of these college students who are like brand new, first job ever, they want to work for a company that does things that are important, that takes care of the environment, that encourage recycling, whatever it would be. So it's really important to like look at what does your talent need to do? What do you need to do as an organization? And how do you map all this together so that you're able to lead change and create a culture and make things even better? And the whole point of this is we're trying to become better businesses, more profitable, more successful, able to scale faster than you are today. And my thought is, if you look at these 10 leadership challenges and focus on maybe 2 that are important to you, you can really see some tremendous results and rewards as a result of focusing on this. All right, so the next one is a little interesting, and I have to be honest, I'd never really heard of the term, and I was speaking with a colleague that I worked with at Samsung, and she was saying, yeah, this is a huge, huge challenge. So it's not all about, I gotta solve this problem. I have to get to the 100% correct decision. It's almost like you're managing 2 different polarities And you have to pay attention to both. And there may be times where you lean a little bit more to the right, or you lean a little bit more to the left, and you just need to be open and adaptable and flexible. And it's basically because of these two sides are independent. And some examples, and like I said, I'll share the job aid, the infographic with you. Because of the two polarities, it's really important to manage both. And is it quality or is it productivity? Well, my gosh, we can do 100% productivity, but our quality is we're going to have 10% defects. So you can't really manage that. You can't get 100% of both. So it's paying attention to two things. I need to get results, but I need to make sure that my employees are engaged. So it's looking at two things and trying to get the best out of both of those two things by just paying attention to both sides. And if you look at Barry Johnson, he's considered a polarity management thought leader, has some really good information as well. Carl Jung is a famous psychiatrist. He had a really good quote. He said, all the greatest and the most important problems of life, get this, are fundamentally insolvable. So it's like, my gosh, like as humans, our brains are wired to, oh, I have a problem, I need to solve it, I need to solve it. But really, it's not about solving it. It's about exploring two dimensions or two polarities necessary and realizing that they can never be solved. Just over time, they become outgrown. And that's just how we evolve as leaders, as business owners, as a society. So challenge number 2 is polarity management. So the way to pay attention to that is shift deeply from solving problems to managing polarities. And don't get me wrong, we still have a lot of problems that come up. We have to solve them, but it's important to don't just think of one side of the house. You have to balance it by looking at both sides. So another example, I have to manage virtually and in the office. I have to balance results with people. I have to focus on the employee health and the business results. And let me tell you, that was one of the top trends that I had when I talked to these 100 people. Managers are like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm a therapist every day. I have to provide so much guidance, so much coaching, so much coddling. These are their words, not mine. But part of it is you do have to lean in and make sure that your employees are whole and they're in a good place. And part of that is learning how to connect with them, ask really good questions, provide honest feedback. And, we're looking at the whole person. So you want to make sure that your employers are healthy, that are happy, so they can be productive, so that you can get the business results that you deserve. And then another example of polarity management is having support meetings, getting people to come together so you can talk about some of the challenges and look at some of these polar opposites and deal with it. Any questions or comments right now?
So far, so good.
All righty. All right. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, create an engaged culture. Does anyone know the difference between rational commitment and emotional commitment? Rational commitment and emotional commitment. And I'll give you a hint. It deals with engagement. If you have a guess, go ahead and put it in the chat pod. Okay, while you're typing, I'm going to give you kind of my take on it. Okay, fact, basis, opinion. Yeah, that's kind of part of it. Thank you so much, John. Rational commitment is, okay, I need a job because I need money, because I have a mortgage, because I need to feed my kids, or like me, my dogs. So whenever you're working or whenever you're thinking about taking a job, there's this rational commitment of, hey, I need to work so that I can feed myself and pay my bills. Then on the other side, this is more of the leadership side, it's the emotional commitment. So do I feel valued at work? Does my manager respect me? Does my manager trust me? Do I trust my manager? Do I feel like the owner of my company is looking out for me, is giving me training that I need to be successful, that is giving me systems that I need to do my jobs? So it's balancing the rational with the emotional commitment that really gets to an engaged culture. So again, I mean, you can throw all the money in the world at people, and people say, oh my gosh, money is like such a great driver of satisfaction. And of course, we all have bills, we all have a lifestyle that we'd like to maintain. But when it comes down to it, people want to work for a good manager. They want to work with someone that can motivate them, that can grow, that they can develop, that they can learn to be a better person. So it's balancing the rational, which is more like the facts, with the emotional commitment. And if you don't know if your employees are emotionally committed, what can you do? Any thoughts in the chat pod?
Smith has a point while you were talking. They said rational thinking before engaging.
Yeah, I saw that. So the rational thinking is like thinking like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm able to pay my bills. I'm able to, meet the hourly demands of the work. And then it's also looking at what are you going to get out of the job. So it looks like we have think of problems and solutions as a coin. Ah, I like this. One side of the coin is a problem, the other is a solution. The middle is our education and expertise, which is all important. I love that. I'm going to have to steal that. Yeah, it's thinking about problems and solutions, and can people contribute? Can people, hey, I have financial problems. I need a job. I need some money. So it's balancing that rational commitment with the emotional commitment. And I love the three-sided coin. That's a nice way to think about it. So great way to ask if people are engaged is to just ask them questions. The worst thing, and this is a little PG-13, but I heard a speaker talking a couple months ago, and he's like, the worst thing that you could do is have happy hours for your employees. And I worked with a company where religiously every Friday they had a happy hour. And they're like, that's the worst thing you can do to create engagement. You take a group of disgruntled employees and you give them alcohol. So now they're venting and sharing problems. And there's a lot of other things that you can do to really build a positive, healthy, engaged culture. And the PG-13 part is the guy said, yeah, happy hours are like a push-up bra for engagement. So they don't really work. So I encourage you to think outside happy hours. I've heard of Zoom-based Christmas parties that people did last year, or taking people on, a hike, or going to the park, or going to an escape room together. They're all great little activities that, if you really buy into engagement and you really want to make sure that you have a healthy, balanced workplace, it's making sure that you value the person, not just the one that does the job. So ask your customers, do you think my employees are engaged? Customers can provide really, really, really good feedback. So I encourage you to reach out to your customers and get that type of feedback on your engagement, and does that align to your engagement goals? Acknowledge and recognize publicly. And this one you got to be careful with, because I remember this is a long time ago, but we recognized an employee at a company, and she had no idea that she was being recognized as the employee of the month. And we asked, this is kind of sad, but true. We asked her to come up, and there was probably a room full of like 60 people or so. And we're like, you're a great employee. Congratulations. You're the March employee of the month. And we thought she was going to love it and be empowered and walk up and get her plaque. She walked out the door and she never came back. So it's knowing what employees like and how they like to be recognized. So some people prefer private, some people prefer public. Some people like the spotlight. One of the things that I think is so basic but so easy is Ritz-Carlton does this on every employee's day one. They give them a piece of paper and it's, what is your favorite candy bar? Would you rather have bonus or time off? What is your favorite soda? What is your favorite restaurant? It's just asking basic questions about what motivates employees. So if you have someone that goes the extra mile, it's like, great, here you go, have a Coca-Cola. So great ways, simple ways to make sure that you're showing your employees really good leadership, really good engagement, and creating that really good engagement. And a great way is just to know your talent, ask them questions, find out what they like, know who wants to be recognized publicly, who wants to be recognized privately. And then, like, if this is important, do an engagement survey. Do you know what your drivers for engagement are? Do you know the reasons why people leave your organization? So some of you with smaller organizations, it's super simple to do. Those companies that have thousands and thousands of employees, it's a little bit tougher, but it's really just about asking questions. So let me go to the chat pod. I see a couple things here. Community, community, community. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, making sure that employees feel part of something bigger than themselves. And that's really what community is and what culture is. Have employees participate in games versus virtues themes. I agree with Miss Josh, one-on-ones, but also take time to get to know your employee. Yeah, just asking them, hey, what's important to you? Oh, I have dogs. Oh, I have fish. Oh, I love cars, whatever it would be. And then, you know, being authentic, don't fake it if you don't care, but hey, I want to know, like you said, you were working on that new car that you bought. Like, you know, how's it going? I remember I bought a house that was a foreclosure. My boss at the time was obsessed with it. I had hot water in the toilets. I had mold in the basement. It was a mess. And we would spend like 50 minutes of our conversations talking about my foreclosure and the renovations that I was doing, to the point where we didn't have any time to talk about the job. So you got to kind of balance that. But the point is, get to know your talent, find out what's important to them, show your interest in people, and communicate, communicate, communicate. Love it. All right, so in summary, and then we will open up the questions, and then we will have our drawing for someone that gets a month of coaching with me. And basically that includes a half-hour session to talk about what are your goals, and then 30 to 40-minute sessions where we can actually talk about your goals. What do you want to do? Put together a plan. And if those of you who don't know about executive coaching, or you've never done that, it's a great way to kind of try that. And if you want to give the gift of St. Patrick's Day, you are welcome to give it to anyone you'd like. So we have that coming up. So in summary, we have the top core leader challenges: create an engaged culture, polarity management, again, culture transformation, leading remote teams, being honest with people, communicating virtually, giving people feedback, and making sure that we're inclusive, that we balance personality with work, managing projects and time, letting people know what your expectations are, strategically aligning the talent, not only today, but thinking, where does your talent need to be in the future, and how do you get the best people at the right job? And then finally, finding and selecting the right talent. Are you advertising in the right places? Are you networking with the right people? Are you going to the trade shows or conferences, or talking to customers, whatever it would be? But putting together what the challenges are, and putting together plans so that you can get your talent, get them engaged, demonstrate good leadership, not only yourselves, but your teams, your managers, your staff, all to make sure that you grow a better and more healthy business. So, are there any questions that you have?
I'm scrolling through to see if we have any.
Okay.
Nope, just somebody said great presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And there's a couple things, like I said, we have this infographic. I'm not sure if it got sent out last time. I looked at the recording earlier today and it wasn't there. So I just put the link to it. There's a link to the 100-person information graphic. And these are like things that you can do based on what we've shared today. There's also an ebook about developing yourself. It's 10 steps to make sure that you have a foolproof development plan. If you go to the first link here, which is the flowcode.com Coach Krumpak, or if you can scan that, that'll take you to pretty much everything. If you have questions, concerns, challenges, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to help you as best as I can. So any other questions, or are we ready to draw our executive coaching participant?
So far, I do not see any questions. I am checking the Q&A. There aren't any questions over there, so I'm scrolling through the chat. Okay, here's one from Christy Nadler, I believe. She says she wants to know, is there any advice you can provide on how to lead this new generation? Great question.
Yeah, it is a really good question. From what I've seen, it's all about aligning values and things that are important to the new generation. How can they get that met by working with you? For example, some organizations, what is it, like Paul Newman's brand, where like they donate all the profits to different not-for-profit organizations and things like that. I'm not articulating myself very well, but it's trying to find what is it that those people want out of a job. And it's no more like our parents where it's like, oh my gosh, you're going to have one job all your life and be fortunate and go. No, like the average person has like 15 jobs throughout their career. So with some of those younger people, it's trying to figure out, asking questions, what do you value? What's important? And from what I'm hearing, they want lots of money and they want lots of flexibility. And some people use the label, they feel entitled. So it's a little tough. Let me give you a great researcher. His name is Lewis Padler. I think it's Paddler. I could be wrong, but he has really, really good research about millennials and baby boomers and like all these different categories of employees and what they want and what they look for. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. But also, and someone said, yeah, it's true. They want money, easy life, and minimum work. Yeah. So it's really important with those people to let them know what is expected and be almost like overly clear about, this is when you need to come to the office. This is when you need to leave. This is how many vacation days that you'll have. These are the types of projects that you have. So I think the big thing is they want to feel listened and they want to feel heard. So I just encourage you to seek to understand before you pass judgment. I'm not saying that you're doing that, but a great phrase I like to think about is seek to understand. Ask them what they want, ask them what they like, ask them what motivates them, and try to go from there. Some feedback about the presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we had one earlier, and I think that what the comment is saying is someone earlier wanted to know, for someone who is not currently a business owner but thinking about starting a business, how can they apply what they learned in tonight's webinar as they move forward in starting a business or even laying that foundation? So
I think the first step is to focus on your personal leadership. Mm-hmm. What's important to you? How can you, like, if I go back a slide here, if I look at the 10 challenges, what are some things that you can do to demonstrate polarity management just in your school, in working with family, working with friends? A great thing, if people are trying to get leadership skills and they're not able to lead people, I always tell people volunteer at a church, volunteer at SCORE, volunteer doing some community work, just so you can try out some of these behaviors and see if you really like it. I think the best thing is ask for informational interviews, find other business owners, and SCORE has an amazing network that we can tap into, ask them questions, schedule time, and really just pay attention and see if it motivates you, excites you, or if it scares you. Because we all have a place and it may take a while to kind of find out what that place is. There's also a really good resource. It's been around forever. It's a book. It's called What Color is Your Parachute? And it talks about like, what are the things that you can get from different types of jobs? What is your personality? Would you be a good business owner? Would you be more of a person that would work for a nonprofit? So I encourage you, if you don't have a business now, think about these things like providing honest feedback. You can start working on that with people around you and your family. But I would think about what your goals are, think about what you're interested in, and then go find people that are doing it and get some really good advice from them.
It says, Christy said, it is important to know what motivates individuals, but sometimes feel this new generation has unrealistic expectations. So yes, thank you. John Jackson says, good presentation, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And again, it's just trying to ask people what's important to them. The younger generation, they might need a little bit more airtime. They might need a little bit more engagement, but they also need a little bit more direction. And I don't feel like people are like clearly communicating what the expectations are. So seek to understand is like my big driver there.
Good. I agree. Somebody said great job. So nice. Some kudos coming in now.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know we have a million things going on. It's late at night. You could be doing a million other things. I really appreciate the time and engagement that everyone had and showed. And I really appreciate the interaction, the chat, the questions. This was a great session. I really appreciate it. And thank you to SCORE for inviting me back for this webinar.
Absolutely. So lots of kudos coming in. Smith says, seek to understand. I like it. Ian says, appreciate the information and great delivery. Some more awesome presentation. Lisa Donovan, very, very informative. So good stuff coming in.
Good. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm scrolling back through and it looks like we got a lot of. Okay, so University of Virgin Islands, this is their first session. So congratulations. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. We appreciate you for participating.
And if you need me to come there in person, just ask.
Yeah, we'll be happy to get on the plane and come in and facilitate. Cruz says, love the tips, suggestions, makes me think out of the box.
Great, great. Thank you.
Okay, so looking back through the comments, it looks like we have more comments from Martin Hughes. Looks like he kind of edged out a couple more people, but Mr. Martin Hughes was really killing it in the comments on tonight.
You know, I have to agree with you. I think I think he gets the award. So yeah. My contact information is up here. So please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll talk about what you'd like to do with your month of executive coaching. So congratulations.
Awesome. We want to thank you all so much for participating in tonight. If you would please take this quick survey. This lets us know what kind of webinars and information to bring your way, if this was helpful in any way. So please participate in this quick end of webinar survey. We thank you so very much for being engaged. Thank you so much, Coach Michael Krumpak. This was so good, so much great information. You all were a phenomenally engaged audience, and that's what makes it even the more better. So we want to thank you all so much for participating tonight. Thank you for your engagement. Again, please participate in our survey. This helps us to know what kind of content to bring your way, and if there's anything else. And it's okay if you have some suggestions, drop them in the comments. We're happy to be able to know what other information and other great webinars that you would like to see. SCORE has tons and tons of webinars. Please make sure you go to our website at broward.score.org and take a look at our calendar of events and register for more phenomenal workshops. We have plenty of them scheduled, some webinars. You might see some midday ones and some on Saturday morning that may suit your needs. And it doesn't matter if you're thinking about starting a business, you've been in business for a while, you're a veteran. We have a webinar that's available to help you start, grow, expand, and maybe even have an exit strategy for your business. Some people are serial entrepreneurs, and we have what it takes to help you in that in your endeavor. So we want to thank you all so much for participating in tonight's poll. We appreciate you for participating in tonight's webinar. And so we're going to take it in the poll. Thank you all so very much for your active participation. And if there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, we're going to go ahead and close it out for tonight. Please remember that we will send you a copy of tonight's presentation as well as a URL link to the recording so you can watch it again and again and again. So again, thank you so very much. Thank you so much, Coach Michael. This was phenomenal, and we look forward to seeing you all in another webinar. Thank you so very much. Have a fantastic night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.